Welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 335, Monetric Charge. The episode begins right at the end of last episode, with Ash and the gang having arrived at Mauville City again for their little pit stop on their way to Petalburg City. As they examined the city, Ash and the gang wanted to do a whole bunch of stuff in the city while they were there, not just battle Watson at the gym, with Ash suggesting that they go and get something to eat at one of the restaurants, although Max interrupted Ash as he spotted a huge sign for an entrance to a carnival. Max and Ash were both eager to go play some games at the carnival, although May wanted to do some shopping first. But Brock pointed out to May that there was a whole bunch of stuff at the carnival, not just activities. In all, there was a soccer target game, a bell game, a snack stand, and a shop where you could buy jewelry and Pokemon plushes and shit like that. And May was intrigued by the shop, especially. So, seeing that the carnival looked relatively empty, Ash and the gang decided to go in there to enjoy it for themselves. Brock was a little hesitant, as he feared if the carnival would even be open, since there was no one there, but it apparently was open, since there was no gates blocking it off, so they all decided to finally enter, deciding to stick together so that they wouldn't get lost everywhere, for now. However, since Ash and Max wanted to play a game, May wanted to shop, and Brock was just indifferent. They decided to start with playing first, although May wouldn't shut up about shopping, so they decided to go shopping first, stopping by the toy stand, which was selling Pokemon plushes, of Mudkip, Pikachu, and Torchic especially. The toy stand also happened to be run by two people in Gengar and Tauros costumes, who were advertising the plushes more than any of the other small items in the shop, even more so than some of the jewelry. The advertising that the two people in costumes were doing had worked, as they advertised a Torchic plushie to May, and she instantly got excited and wanted to buy it since, she loved Torchic, although Brock stopped her, reminding her that they didn't really have much money. May realized Brock was right, and apologized to the people in costumes for not being able to buy any of their products, who just told her that it was okay, as May and Brock and the rest of the gang left the toy stand, leaving the two people in costumes to unmask themselves for a moment, revealing themselves to actually be Jesse and James, indicating that they were actually running this carnival, and they were fine with May not buying the plushie, since they were just happy that she was there, since they obviously planned to do some shit. Anyways, with May now realizing that she couldn't shop, Ash and the gang decided to just play at the carnival, and they also decided to let out all of their Pokemon to play with them as well, with May sending out her Beautyfly, Torchic, and Skitty, Brock sending out his Mudkip, Lotad, and Fortress, and Ash sending out his Tailo, Trico, and Corphish, and Torkoal, along with Pikachu, obviously. Torkoal immediately knew that all of these other Pokemon must have belonged to Ash and the gang, so he happily greeted them by spouting out some smoke. Although this doesn't make any of the Pokemon too happy, as now they were all covered in smoke, and they questioned who the fuck Torkoal even was, aside from Skitty and Torchic, obviously, because they had seen it before, leading Ash to introduce Torkoal to them, explaining that it liked to snort smoke out in a friendly manner, not in an attempt to be rude, and told them not to worry, and instructed all the Pokemon to just be nice to Torkoal and greet it. So they did this, although Torkoal was happy to see everyone greet him, so he ended up crying tears of happiness and snorting out smoke again, covering not only Ash and the gang's Pokemon with soot, but also Team Rocket, who were nearby the smoke, because the smoke had spread even farther this time, and even they weren't happy with Torkoal now for getting the smoke in their face, and they declared that they were going to catch it as punishment. They were originally planning to just steal the rest of Ash and the gang's Pokemon, but no, they were going to do Torkoal as well. Anyways, with all their Pokemon out, Ash and the gang then decided to partake in the first game of the carnival, being the soccer target game, where the goal was to kick a soccer ball at a square on a board, which had the most amount of points. And Brock, when he kicked the ball, managed to get the most amount of points, being 10, making him very pleased, as he brags about his skills. Although the rest of the gang shut him up, because they wanted to try and upshow him by scoring more than 110, and just take their turn in general. But before any of them could step up, Ash then noticed his Torkoal standing in front of the ball, making Ash come to the conclusion that his Torkoal wanted to play soccer as well, although Max questioned how Torkoal would be able to kick the ball to the best of its ability, due to it being on 4 legs, leading Ash to hype up Torkoal, excited to see him kick, as he tells him how to, advising that he stands on his hind legs to kick. However, the thought of Torkoal getting on its hind legs made Max pretty troubled, as he figured that Torkoal would just end up messing up the kick and tripping, since its legs were super short and its body was super big, so it probably wasn't used to standing on its hind legs. And sure enough, as everyone watched while Torkoal actually did stand on hind legs and got ready to kick, it fell over, landing on its back, because it wasn't used to being on its hind legs. As a result of its failure, Corphish starts crying, not in happiness but in genuine sadness, although Ash just tries to comfort it, stating he was sure Torkoal could kick the ball if he tried again next time. But Torkoal gave up for the time being, as all of the gang and their Pokemon decided to split up to play a whole bunch of different games, with Brock and all of his Pokemon, particularly his Lotad and Mudkip, as Fortress just watched, played a water target game, where you had to shoot targets with water. Brock used the supplied water super soaker gun that he found on the ground, that was, part of the setup and everything, while he had Lotad and Mudkip hit other targets with their own water gun attacks, therefore earning a very good score. Meanwhile, Max was playing Ring Toss with the help of Skitty and Pikachu, although Pikachu was the only one really helping out Max, as Skitty, whenever Max placed a ring on its tail, would refuse to let it go, as it was too enamored by it and chased it around, and when it chased its tail. Corphish and Trico were playing the Ring the Bell game to test their strength together, like the game where the thing starts off at the bottom, and then you have to hit it up to test your strength. Yeah, they were doing that, using both Corphish's pincers and Trico's tail to try and get a super good score for each of them. They're basically trying to get an even better score by working together. Unfortunately, even while they were teamed up, they couldn't get far enough to get to the top. They got close, but not quite there. Ash then suggested that Corfish and Trico play a different game, because he wanted to play something and he wasn't playing anything yet, and he wanted to play with them, along with Torkoal. Torkoal was very happy to be included, and he was so happy that he unleashed smoke again, causing Trico and Corfish to cough and get covered in soot. Meanwhile, May was playing a dancing game, like kind of similar to all those ones that you see like a Just Dance or Dance Dance Revolution on one of those pads, with the help of Torchic, Beautyfly, and Talo, in addition to Fortress, as it got bored just watching Brock, and it wanted to play something for itself. Though suddenly, as May and the Pokemon were dancing, a silhouette of Meowth suddenly appeared on the screen that was showing the dance moves, and from then on, the silhouette of Meowth began to dance, indicating what moves May and the Pokemon were supposed to do. But unbeknownst to May, this was actually not a Meowth silhouette. It was actually just the shadow of Team Rocket's Meowth, who was behind the dancing game machine. Just then, Meowth pulls out a remote and presses a red button on it, which causes all the carnival game attractions to turn into Pokemon stealing traps. For example, at the water target game that Brock, Lotad, and Mudkip were at, the targets in the game disappeared to reveal holes which a stream of water came pouring out of, and once the water had cleared, Lotad and Mudkip had ended up in a cage. Basically, a cage had deployed from the hole as well, but it was only water at first, so that Brock wouldn't see the cage coming out and try to stop it. These traps that were going on confirmed that Team Rocket were actually the ones who had set up this carnival and had fucking messed with it in order to catch all the Pokemon. Anyways, as Ash was over by the game with Corfish, Trico, and Torkoal, Ash got startled upon seeing a whole bunch of water by Brock, Lotad, and Mudkip, and when he got startled, he actually trips and he landed directly on the pad that Trico and Corfish were trying to hit to get all the way up, and once the bell was actually rung, since the thing made it all the way up, it was revealed that a trap was there as well, as the bell then dropped a trap net on Trico, Corfish, and Torkoal, capturing them. As for Max, Skitty, and Pikachu, by the ring toss game, the rings in the ring toss game started to glow, and soon enough, they deployed from where they were sitting, and the rings extended to capture Pikachu and Skitty. Team Rocket observed all this while in their Tauros and Gengar costumes still, and smiled as the traps continued, with Meowth then popping through the dance game screen with a net, and he used this net to capture the Torchic, Beautyfly, Talo, and Fortress, which were caught off guard. And then Team Rocket all meet up, with Jesse and James meeting up with Meowth, having taken Trico, Corfish, and Torkoal's net, having taken Pikachu and Skitty, and having taken Lotad and Mudkip, and they load all the Pokemon up into one singular huge net. And they then attach this net to their Meowth balloon and fly off in it, as they reveal themselves by throwing off their disguises and doing their motto, during which Jesse takes a soccer ball from the soccer ball game and tosses it at the targets with number symbols on them, and as soon as she hits one of the targets, it changes to a screen with a huge R, finishing off Team Rocket's motto in style, as Wobbuffet also pops out. Ash and the gang didn't give a single fuck about Team Rocket's motto, though. They cared about having their Pokemon escape from the net, so Ash told Pikachu to break the net with Thunderbolt, but Team Rocket just laughed, as the net was electric-proof. So Brock had Fortress try a Rapid Spin, but even that didn't work, and Fortress ended up getting caught in the net from trying the Rapid Spin. May then has her Torchic try an Ember, but Team Rocket just laughed, claiming that they had made the net fireproof as well. Damn. Ash then tries a combination of Corfish's Crab Hammer, Trico's Bullet Seed, Talo's Peck, and Torkoal's Flamethrower, with Brock adding in a Water Gun from both Lotad and Mudkip, and May adding in a Tackle from Beautyfly and Skitty. Despite all these attacks occurring at the same time, the net was still completely unfazed, as Team Rocket laughed. It was apparently just goddamn attack-proof. Team Rocket just laughs again, explaining that the reason why the net was so attack-proof was because they had spent a fortune on the goddamn thing, and were happy that it was working so well, as they decide to float away, happy that they had finally gotten the Pokemon that they wanted after all this time. Ash and the gang began to panic at this, trying to think of a plan, but they couldn't. The situation was truly hopeless. That was, until, much to Ash and the gang's surprise, Watson and his assistant Watto were running to the rescue, along with Watson's Electrike, just before Team Rocket could make it very far away. Ash and the gang were very happy to see their old friends, as Watson had his Electrike use Thunder Wave on the net, but just like all the other attacks, it did nothing, since Meowth reminded Ash and the gang that the net was electric-proof, and specifically made out of really strong rubber. This leads Watson's assistant Watt to send out his own Pokemon, Ampharos, and he has to use Iron Tail on the rope that was holding the net to the Meowth balloon, which therefore cuts the net, sending the net flying down to Ash and the gang, and this breaks the net, freeing all of the Pokemon, prompting Jesse to get mad at Meowth for not using a stronger rope along with the stronger net, although Meowth responds that Team Rocket weren't that rich, they had to cut money somewhere, so if they were going to get an expensive net, then they had to get a cheap rope. Anyways, Ash, Watt, and Watson quickly team up to blast off Team Rocket, with Electrike using Thunder Wave, Pikachu using Thunderbolt, and Ampharos using a Thunderbolt of its own. Team Rocket laughed at first, as they claimed that their Meowth balloon was electric-proof as well, but even though this was true, 3 electric attacks at once was too much, even for Team Rocket's electric protection, so the balloon exploded and Team Rocket blasted off. Ash and the gang then thank Watson and Watto for their help, claiming that they came right on time. And Ash and the gang then comment on Watt's Ampharos, since they hadn't seen it before, and May hadn't seen an Ampharos period, even though Ash had saw Jasmine use one, so she used her Pokédex on it to learn more about it. Just then, Watson's Electrike seemed to be acting a little weird, concentrating on something, when immediately after this, Electrike began to glow and evolve into Manectric. Everyone congratulated Watson on his Electrike finally evolving, as Watson happily hugged his Manectric, and Ash checked the Pokédex, since he had never seen a Manectric before, and he learned that Manectric's electricity was extremely strong, way stronger than Electrike's. Just then, Torkoal cries out, showing its happiness for Watson and Manectric, as it then does its usual happy greeting by spouting out a whole bunch of smoke, covering Ash and the gang, Watson, Watt, and all the Pokemon with soot. Everyone soon cleans off the soot, and Ash apologizes on his Torkoal's behalf, assuring Watson and Watt that Torkoal didn't mean any disrespect when doing this. It only smoked when it was happy and wanted to show its gratitude or congratulate someone for evolving, for example, which is what it was doing for Manectric. Watson just laughs off what Torkoal did, congratulating Ash on capturing a new Pokemon since the short time since their gym battle. Upon Watson mentioning the gym battle, Ash remembered how he was supposed to battle Watson, and he got an idea. He suggested that since he hadn't actually had a chance to have an official battle with Torkoal yet, he wanted to challenge Watson to a training battle against his Manectric, so that Watson could test out his new Manectric, and he could test out his new Torkoal. So basically, the battle was going to be under the same conditions as it was before, but now Ash could test out his Pokemon as well, and Watson happily agreed to this. Watt then took an interest in May's new Skitty, realizing that she didn't have it back when she visited the Mauville gym either, and congratulated her on getting a new capture, and commented on how fucking cute it was, and petted it. Although May explained that Skitty was new, and it was cute, but it was actually pretty strong as well, and had won several battles. Watto was intrigued by this, and asked May if she wanted to battle with her Skitty against his Ampharos, to which May gladly accepted. So, with that, Ash and the gang, Watson and Watt, went over to the gym to have their matchups. When Ash and the gang, Watson and Watt arrived at the gym, Brock, May, and Max commented on how the entrance of the gym right outside looked pretty different. Ash acknowledged this as well, but he was too hyped to battle, so he just ignored that and went to go open the door to go inside, but Watt stopped him, yelling at him not to open it. With Watson butting in as well, and explaining that the entrance of the gym wasn't the only thing that had changed, with Watt added that they now had the main entrance guarded by high voltage, so if you touched the main door, then you couldn't answer, with Watson explaining that the reason why they did this was because he had put a whole bunch of new traps in the gym that Ash and the gang, or any challenger for that matter, would have to go through to get inside. So basically, he wanted to force people to have to go through the entrance that led to all the traps, so they basically had to go back around the other side to the gym to get in that entrance, as opposed to going in the front, since, he made the front inaccessible. Ash and the gang then freak out, as they remember the trouble that they had to face last time they entered the gym, with all the traps, such as the sliding down on the water chute on a loose board, facing the Raikou robots, and they immediately declared that they did not want to do that again. And they eventually managed to convince Watson to not make them do it again, when they explained that they'd already went through the traps, so they shouldn't have to go through traps again, even if they were new. And they also stated that this was only a training match, and it should only be for actual challengers of the gym that had to do it. And Watson was convinced by this, so with that, they just disabled the electric lock on that other entrance of the gym, and they walked in that way. So they made it to the battlefield, and it was now time for the first battle, which was going to be between May and Watt, with Watt sending out his Ampharos and May sending out her Skitty, with Watson being the ref. Ash wondered why May got to battle first, as he really wanted to battle Watson, but Brock simply suggested that Ash should be a gentleman and let the lady go first. Damn, are you trying to simp for May now, Brock? That's even below you, my dude. And Max pointed out that main events always come last. So basically, he was stating that he knew that May and Watt's battle wasn't going to be that fucking interesting, and he was just hyped for Ash and Watson's battle as well, but he wanted to build up Ash and Watson's battle. Watson then declared that it was time for Watt and May's match to begin, so May started off the battle with Skitty using a double slap, immediately followed by a tackle, shocking Watt, no pun intended, as this already threw his Ampharos off balance. Watson laughs upon seeing how awesome this battle was, while Ash, Brock, and Max observed the battle, finding it awesome as well, with Max admitting that it was more interesting than he anticipated. Ampharos was sick of being hit, so it retaliated with Thundershock, but Skitty just dodged the attack. Although Skitty was not able to dodge for long, as Ampharos merely just turned around while still using Thunderbolt, and this allowed Ampharos to hit the Thunderbolt. With Skitty caught off guard by this, Ampharos then follows up with an Iron Tail, almost knocking Skitty out. However, as May urges Skitty to get back up and use all its strength, Skitty obliges, making Watt surprised but impressed that Skitty was not fainted yet, while May was happy. Watt was determined to win though, as he simply just told his Ampharos to use Thunderbolt yet again. But May ordered an assist from Skitty before the Thunderbolt hit, so Skitty proceeded to copy one of May's Pokemon's attacks, being Torchic's Quick Attack, and uses it to both speed away from the Thundershock and eventually hit Ampharos, leaving Ash, Brock, and Max impressed with how effectively May had used Assist to dodge and then use Quick Attack. May then orders one last attack from her Skitty, being a double slap, and this was enough to knock Ampharos down to the ground, knocking it out, leading Watson to officially declare May the winner, and he congratulates May on her smart ideas for move combinations, with how she immediately followed up one move with the other, and also complimented May's Skitty on being strong, just like she said, leading May to thank Watson for the compliment, as she congratulates her Skitty herself, and thanks Watt for the battle, stating that it would improve her chances of winning her next Pokemon contest, explaining to Watt and Watson how she planned to become a coordinator, and planned to use Skitty in her upcoming contest battle. Watson and Watt wish May luck with her goal of being a coordinator, although Brock cuts in, stating that if May was going to use a Skitty in a contest, it'd be best that she not overuse Assist, as the judges may find that boring, but Watson doubted this, stating that if he was a judge, he would love if Skitty kept using Assist, because it would constantly be a new surprise attack to witness. With May and Watt's battle done, Watson changed the subject, reminding Ash of their battle. Ash was very excited and began to prepare mentally for his rematch against Watson, hoping that he would get a full-on genuine win with Torkoal. Meanwhile, Team Rocket had arrived at the front of the Mauville gym, knowing that all of Watson's Pokemon were electric types, but more powerful than Pikachu, since they would have been able to beat Pikachu, most likely, if Pikachu wasn't super powered up. So, they really wanted to steal them. So they went to open the door that led to all the traps, unbeknownst to them, because they were surprised when they opened the door, only for the door to fall, just like it had last time, indicating that even though Watson may have included one or two more traps, he still had the same ones from before, as the door then slid down the hallway and rose above the ground thanks to a magnetic force, and started sliding down the hallway like a roller coaster, leading Team Rocket to freak out. Anyways, back in the gym, it was now Ash versus Watson, with Watto being the referee, as Ash sent out Torkoal and Watson sent out Manectric. Ash then started off the battle, as Watto officially declared it to begin, with Torkoal using a flamethrower, although Manectric dodged and hit Torkoal with a tackle attack, leaving Ash shocked at how Manectric was able to just jump over the fire completely. And also, Ash was impressed by Manectric's speed, although he was impressed by Torkoal as well, because despite the tackle, it didn't do much damage, since Torkoal was very strong, and was able to use its legs to keep itself standing on the field, and stop itself from being moved back by the tackle. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they were still riding the door, basically in the roller coaster formation, and they were not enjoying this at all. Suddenly, the door slowed down a bit, as they were now going up a steep uphill ramp, higher and higher, until they reached the top, and upon reaching the top, Team Rocket declared that they were going to get off while the door had now stopped, but before they could get off, they noticed that the door was about to curve downhill now, and they prepared for the big slide that was about to ensue, but much to their surprise, a trapdoor opened underneath them, and they fell deep down into some water that was below them, although they didn't see the water at first, so they were startled even more when they landed in the water. Meanwhile, back to the battle. Manectric tried to use a bite, but Ash had Torkoal reply by using Iron Defense to withdraw into its shell. This leads Torkoal to not take any damage from being bitten, as it releases a deep smoky breath in relief at the fact that it wasn't injured, as it pops back out of its shell. As for Manectric, despite biting onto Torkoal's hard shell, its teeth weren't fucked. Manectric then tries to use Thunder Wave, but Torkoal counters that by using Overheat. Watson and Ash both watched eagerly, along with Watt, since he had to make sure he knew what was going on in the battle, since he was the ref, as both of the attacks collided in midair. Although Overheat was more powerful, so it pushed Thunder Wave back and scored a powerful hit on Manectric. However, despite this, Manectric didn't take too much damage and still had plenty of energy left, although Torkoal did as well, as it breathed out smoke again to exclaim that it was happy with this battle and ready for its next move, although Manectric got ready for its next move as well by preparing a little shock, threatening Torkoal. As for Watson and Ash themselves, they were both immensely fired up, laughing their asses off, since the battle was not over yet, and they were having a very good time, although Watson warned Ash that there were surprises with his Manectric that he didn't know about. Ash wondered what surprise this was, with May wondering this as well, while Max was just glad to see this battle, stating that it had lived up to the hype. Watt was interested in the battle as well, watching intently. As for Team Rocket, the door now functioned as a small raft, since the water they had fallen into was actually a gigantic whirlpool, which they were being sucked into. Anyways, back to the battle. Because really, did anyone really care about what Team Rocket was doing? Torkoal used another Overheat. Watson then revealed his surprise before the Overheat hit though, as he ordered Manectric to use a charge, which powered up its electricity to the point where Manectric was able to use its electricity to absorb the Overheat, so Manectric didn't even flinch upon getting hit by it. Although Ash saw that Manectric charging put it at a disadvantage, as it wasn't able to attack while it charged up, so he ordered Torkoal to use a flamethrower, but the flamethrower didn't really do much damage at all, even though it hit, with Manectric just absorbing this attack like it had the Overheat. May was confused at why the fire attacks weren't working, though figured that it was just a fluke or some shit, and assumed that Torkoal would very easily defeat Manectric in any moment now. However, Brock explained to May what she didn't understand about the move Charge, which was that Charge powered up electric-type moves, and it was able to absorb any other attack and convert it into electricity or some shit. Or it was just using the immense electric power to negate the rest of the attacks. Either way, Brock clarified that this took an immense toll on Manectric, since it had to spend so long charging up, though Brock still thought that Torkoal could be in massive danger because of how strong Charge was if it was actually able to take effect. Just then, Manectric finishes charging, leaving Brock to comment on how strong Manectric looked, as the fully charged Manectric managed to completely get rid of any damage it had taken from the Overheat whatsoever, absorbing every last bit of it, as Watson then told Manectric to unleash all of its new electric power with a shockwave attack, as a bunch of yellow sparks flew up and formed a huge blue ball of electricity. While this was going on, Ash commanded Torkoal to use another Overheat attack, but Brock nervously reminded Ash that if Overheat was used multiple times in a row, it would get weaker, and since this was the third time in a row Ash was using Overheat, he knew that it would be weaker. Although, before he could say this, Torkoal had already used the Overheat, and it did nothing, as Manectric unleashed the shockwave, as it exploded and hit Torkoal, stopping its Overheat completely and knocking it out. leaving Watt to officially declare that Watson was the winner of the match. Watson then congratulated his Manectric on its first win as Ash returned his Torkoal to its Pokeball after hugging it and comforting it for its loss, and wished it better luck in its future battles, stating that although Torkoal lost this time, he knew that it could redeem itself. Meanwhile, back with Team Rocket, because we really cared about them. After being sucked into the whirlpool, they had managed to get out of the water, but nonetheless, they just continued going down a hallway out of the water, still on the door. However, they were knocked the fuck out because they were sleeping, being really tired from all the traps they had encountered. Soon enough, though, Team Rocket woke up and, of course, found themselves on the door, sliding down the hallway, and panicked as they were about to hit a wall. But just then, the wall opened, and the door stopped moving, making Team Rocket believe for a second, but then they panicked, as they immediately found themselves surrounded by 3 Raikou, leaving me off the question how a gym leader would have a room with 3 legendary Pokemon Raikou. Although Team Rocket must have forgot that Watson built Raikou robots, as that's what these were, and it was also what his new trap was. The thing that was new was really the fact that A, there was the whirlpool, and B, there was more than one Raikou bot. Although Team Rocket didn't come to the conclusion that these were only robots and thought they were real Raikou, so they decided to capture them so they could sell them or give them to Giovanni. So Jessie sent out her Viper to battle the Raikou, while James sent out his Cacnea, thinking of a move fast. Meanwhile, back in the gym, Ash and Watson shook hands, and Ash thanked Watson for letting him battle him again, and promised to come back for another challenge, making Watson glad that Ash had determination and wasn't willing to give up just because he lost a battle, although Ash assured Watson that just because he had lost this battle didn't mean he would lose the next one, as Watson had lost one and he had lost one, so now they were technically even. Watson just smiled and prepared to say goodbye to Ash and the gang, as Ash and the gang were about to leave the gym, and all of Mauville City for that matter, to go on to Petalburg. But Watt stopped Ash and the gang, as he claimed that he had something to tell May, explaining that he knew that May wanted to be a Pokemon coordinator, so he figured that she would like to know that there was an upcoming Pokemon contest in Verdanturf Town, which was a town very close by to Mauville City, in another direction as opposed to Petalburg, stating that, as far as he knew, it was the closest upcoming contest that was closest to Mauville City. Max was a bit concerned upon hearing that Verdanturf Town would be away from Petalburg City, as he, like Ash, wanted to get there relatively soon, so he checked the Pokénav to see if there was another way to get to Verdanturf that was closer to Petalburg, and sure enough, when he checked, he saw a pathway that was just to the west of Mauville City that led to Verdanturf Town, and from there was a pathway from Verdanturf Town to the right of it that led to Petalburg City. So, seeing that they could go to Verdanturf and then Petalburg immediately after, Max suggested that that's what they do, with everyone else agreeing. So with that, Verdanturf Town was their next destination. May was very excited by this, hoping that she would earn her second contest ribbon in Verdanturf Town, as Ash and the gang then waved goodbye to Watt and Watson and set off out of Mauville City toward Verdanturf Town. However, we then see one last scene with Team Rocket, who were still determined to have their Pokemon weaken what they believed to be actual Raikou to capture them, as Jessie told her Viper to use Poison Tail and James told Cacnea to use Needle Arm. Each of these attacks on one of the 3 Raikous, although Meowth realized that would still leave one Raikou not attacked, so he jumped in as well, using Fury Swipes on that one. All these attacks did, though, was cause the Raikou robots' heads to be chopped off, revealing them to Team Rocket to actually be robots and not actual Raikou, much to their shock and much to their dismay. However, Meowth tried to look on the bright side, stating that at least their lives weren't at risk from the powers of real Raikou, but it turned out that their lives were at risk, as since the Raikou robots were extremely damaged with their heads being cut off, they began to short-circuit and exploded, sending Team Rocket blasting off right out of the gym, as Wobbuffet forcibly popped out of its Pokeball, with Watson and Watt not even noticing this because they were too busy saying goodbye to Ash and the gang.